Council July the 20th, 2021 to order. I want to welcome KJIW, the Helena-West World, and any other media that we might have present or guests. Miss Sandy, call the roll.
Davis. St. Columbia.
Here.
Crockett.
Here.
Franklin. Etherly. Forward.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
That makes a quorum.
Well, I want to start before we get down to business. I want to make an announcement. I've already sent this out to, or Helen actually did, to the city council, but I'm proud to say after 2 years and 3 months, we just recently sent out and executed today the agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice that will save the city over $1.1 million plus fees, late fees, and interest that has been hanging over our head for over 20 years now. Something we started working on shortly after I became mayor in March 2019. We had our second meeting in March 2020, right before the pandemic started. Pandemic slowed things down. And then the council approved the settlement offer, and the U.S. Department of Justice just recently did the final approval, and they have signed it. And what this document represents is with my signature, and we've sent it back. And we have agreed to pay $50,000 over 6 years, $300,000 total. They waived the interest and penalties. All told, that's, like I said, 1.1 million plus interest and penalties we've saved. We have 6 years. Normally they only do settlements for 3 years, but they agreed to give us 6. They've also removed us off the offset program for federal grants and federal funds, which also hung over our head, and even was beginning to sweep federal money out of our accounts there at the end. So that's big news, and I want to share it with you. Thank all of you who helped with this, which is everybody in the administration, including Mr. Valley, and as well as the council that approved the final settlement, but especially the attorneys at the Department of Justice who worked in good faith with us. It's not often you get to sign a document and save over $1 million, but that's what we did today, and I just wanted to make that announcement public. That's good news for our city. So thank you for everybody involved in that. So the first item on business would be the minutes of July 13th. That should be in your packet. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes from July 13th?
July 13th, I move that we, I move that we approve the minutes of July 13th.
Mr. St. Columbia moves adoption July 13th. Is there a second? We need a second on a motion to adopt the minutes from July the 13th. Anybody?
Second.
Was that, I'm sorry, was that Ms. Ford? Who was that?
Evergene, I think, approved, seconded.
Seconded by Ms. Ford. Any discussion or questions? If not, call the roll.
Etherly. Forward.
Yes.
Davis. Crockett.
Yes.
Franklin. St. Columbia.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
That's 4. Yes.
Thank you. The next item is the special meeting minutes on July the 14th. Also in your packet. Was there a
July
motion? July the 14th special meeting? I was not in attendance for that meeting, so.
I don't have minutes from July the 14th.
We don't have enough people to do that anyway, because Joe wasn't there and you wasn't there, so we don't have enough people for that.
I don't have it anyway.
Well, it's right here. If we get some people on later, Ms. Ramsey, remind me, and we'll try to do that again.
Okay.
Oh, here I said,
Okay. Okay, under action items, the treasurer's report. Mr. Turner, you're recognized. Mr. Turner, are you on?
I'm sorry. Okay, like I said last week at last week's council meeting, I want to reiterate a couple of things about that. As far as the general fund is concerned, we had at the end of the first 2 quarters of 2021, we ended those quarters with $160,872.83 cash in the bank. We had an operating gain of $218,364.71. And we had surplus of $160,872.83. And I like to stress that operating gain was in spite of us not receiving any property tax from the county so far this year. Now we expect to receive the property tax sometime later this year, but as you're well aware that they had a change in county treasurer, and so they are currently right now trying to figure out what they owe everybody. And so we haven't received anything from the county yet, but we expect to be made whole sometime during the year. With that, I want to move on to the budget. As far as the general fund is concerned, the council has made several changes to the appropriations. I sent them an email yesterday highlighting those changes to appropriations so they would know exactly what they were and where they come from. And so far this year, through July, through the changes that they made in July, they've increased appropriations $151,941 in the general fund and $16,168 in the street fund. And that amounts to, in the general fund, that amounts to a nominal increase of about 1.98% of the total budget and 1.67% in the street fund. And so from the appearance, there hasn't been any adverse effects to the budget in the street or the general fund as a result of these changes in appropriations. And I don't foresee any impact in the budget results throughout the remaining of the year as a result of these changes. And we continue to have a budget surplus through June of, hold on a second. We continue to have a budget surplus through June of $160,872.83. And so that takes care of the general fund. Now in the street fund, we do have an operating loss in the street fund of and you can see that if you have your statement with you. We have a loss in the street fund of $228,777.29. Members of the council, you can find that on page 23, the bottom of page 23. And that is primarily also due to the lack of the city receiving property tax from the county as well. Our property tax revenues are divided. A portion of it goes to the general fund, and a portion of those property tax revenues go to the street fund. And so we haven't received any property tax. The street fund hasn't received any property tax as well. And so the lack of those revenues is currently right now causing us to have a negative operations in the street fund.
The county,
But we do have yes, sir.
I was gonna ask you, the county is kind of dragging their feet on giving us the funds. Is that what you're saying there? Is that why?
No, they're not dragging. They're not dragging their feet. Mr. St. Columbia. What happened was they had a change in city treasurers. I mean, county treasurers. The
Right.
county treasurer resigned, and so they were. And I don't know if you saw the last audit, but they were having some issues with some of the payouts that they made to school districts and municipalities, and so they're trying to correct those items. And so while they're correcting those items, we just haven't received any property tax from the county as of yet. But we fully expect to be made whole as of now.
How much do you estimate the income that we're missing from them?
Well, right, I projected about $400,000 in total in property tax for the general fund and close to 200 for the street fund for the year. So we haven't gotten any of that.
So you
and from
figure,
last year,
you figure they owe us about 250,000?
well, that's what I projected, and that's what we
Yeah.
probably should receive sometime for this year. But we don't really get that main payment, that big payment, until sometime in October, well, November, because it's not really due until I think October 13th, October 15th, or something like that. So we usually get the big check at the end of the year, and what we get monthly prior to that are delinquent payments that people make. And so it's hard to determine how much that is, and I'm not sure exactly what they owe us from last year. It may be correct, it may not, but nobody actually knows right now. We know that according to the audit, that they didn't make all the payments that they should have made last year, but we don't know how much of that goes to the school districts and how much of that is going to go to the municipalities.
Okay.
Okay, so, and as soon as I get an update on that, I'll give you guys an update on it. As soon as I find out something, I'll let you guys know. And as far as the landfill is concerned, they're experiencing a operating loss in the landfill as well. But I feel a little bit more positive about that. I told you a couple of council meetings ago that we were having problems with some collections from some of the haulers. And so the mayor got on the phone with some people and started making phone calls, pretty much making collection phone calls. We started having some revenue come in, and it's been coming in pretty steady now. So I anticipate that we will catch up with projections in the landfill revenue, but we were also paying for some rental equipment, and that put us back a little bit as far as expenditures were concerned. So that was a big cause and why we were experiencing a loss in the landfill, in addition to the revenue from tipping fees that we weren't receiving from the haulers. But we did purchase a new dump truck, and so that will cut out some of those rental fees we had. And so I'm not exactly sure how we'll end the year, but I'm sure we'll end close to breaking even in the landfill, and hopefully we will have a profit there. But right now I'm kind of projecting that we'll be close to break even in the landfill. And I want to reiterate that the surplus that we have in the general fund it's not actual cash. We have $144,000 cash in the bank, but that surplus is an operating surplus, meaning that we just had fewer revenues than we had. We had more revenues than we did expenditures. And so hopefully and I'm anticipating that will continue. We're ahead on sales tax. I think the sales tax revenue will probably come in the way that it has been. We've been watching our expenditures pretty closely here in City Hall, and I'm pretty sure that we'll continue on that same level throughout the rest of the year. So I'm kind of expecting to, hopefully we'll have a surplus, have an operating gain from operations at the end of the year, and we can build on our surplus as well. Do I have, are there any questions? I know I sent you guys a couple of worksheets yesterday regarding the appropriations, and I also sent an email explaining them. And so if you have any questions about that, I'm willing, ready to answer any questions that you may have.
And Mr. Turner,
Yes, sir.
with the COVID money that we received, I know we put that all in general funds, but I mean, where are we with that? I mean, how have we spent all that money? Have you all anticipate any more from the state to send out any more of COVID relief funds to the city?
Yeah, the mayor and the chief of staff can probably better answer what we have or what they anticipate any additional money that we're going to get. But I can tell you that the money that we did get, that money did go into general funds. It's general operating revenue. It was a reimbursement of revenues, and we still have money in the general fund, and we still have money in the Bank of the Ozarks as well, and that surplus sales tax account that we have with the Bank of Ozarks. So it's hard to tell exactly how much we spent of that because it all went back into general funds, but we do have money left. So it's a combination of the reimbursement that we got from the government, a combination of the money that we continue to get in from sales tax revenue. So it's kind of hard to say exactly how much that is because it did go into general funds.
Yes, sir. So
I just amend that, say minus the pandemic payment that went out. So, and I'm trying to remember what the total of the pandemic checks came to. Do you recall, Mr. Turner?
I wasn't finished.
No.
Yeah, I'm answering your question, and Mr. Turner, do you remember how much the pandemic approximately? Yeah, we can't hear you, breaking up. Well, anyway, I didn't hear an answer, but go ahead.
I can check right quick.
I'm sorry, say that one more time, Mr. Turner.
I can check. You let Mr. Franklin ask this question. I can check and see how much.
And the other thing is we're going to talk about the upcoming, what they're trying to do here later on the agenda, but go ahead.
How much was the payment? $750.
Mr. Turner,
Yes, sir.
it was like, yes, sir.
I can barely hear you, Mr. Franklin.
Okay, hold on. Let me get this. Keep me better, Mr. Turner.
Yes.
This is what I'm saying. If we didn't have that pandemic payment, because see, the thing that I'm trying to get us to start realizing.
Mr. Franklin, we can't hear you. So if you could, we'll see if there are any other questions until you get
that
better.
If we did not have that pandemic payment, we would be in a world of trouble with what we get history.
No, I wouldn't say that, Mr. Franklin. Like I said, we get about $30,000. Excuse me, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Well, can you hear me better now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, well, see, this is what I'm trying. This is what I'm trying to come in. You know, and not to be funny or anything, but if we did not have that pandemic pay, we would be in a world of trouble. I understand that we've done a lot to make the city better, raises and this and that. But if we had not gotten that pandemic pay, we would be in some trouble because with what we gave the county, what the voters decided to do for the jail tax, we lost that $750,000 or $500,000 or $450,000, whichever one it was. We lost their operating revenue right there, and the pandemic payment just put us where we can operate because we was gonna lose that money for a year. So if we do receive some more pandemic pay, it will push us to do a little bit better. But we need to start getting ready to once the world open back up and save some or put some money back because we're gonna get hit. We hadn't felt it yet due to the pandemic pay. We lost the money from the jail, the tax from the jail. If we hadn't had loss, so I'm just saying that we need to kind of watch what we're doing.
They shot a birthday today.
Ms. Turner,
Yeah, at first, the question about how much we paid, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $120,000. That looks like about what we did on the COVID payments. And to Mr. Franklin's comments about we would be in a world of hurt. Now, actually, you guys, when you passed the budget in 2020, we budgeted for the loss in jail tax money. So we budgeted for that and we still came in under budget. The revenues don't have anything to do with the expenditures that we budgeted. I mean, they kind of let us know about how much to budget for expenditures, but we got that COVID payment in November, and you guys, we passed the budget in February, so we had taken into account that we were going to lose revenues from the jail tax earlier in the year. So that had been taken into account, and we still finished the year under budget. I'm not going to say we would have been in a world of trouble. It helped out, and it gave us some cushion just in case for some unforeseen expenditures came along. But we did finish with an operating gain last year, and we did finish under budget. And even without that COVID payment, we had already budgeted for it. What helped us out the most was that we didn't fill all those positions in the police department. So that helped out more than anything. But as far as the COVID payment was concerned, that didn't have, it was good to have, but that didn't really have a lot of effect on our operating as far as getting under the budget.
So when you said the police, so when you say about the police department, right? Those officers that were not hired, that this council was accused of defunding the police department, that kind of would help the city as well, right? Is that what you're saying?
And I made that. Yeah, I said that last year. That not filling those positions helped us out a lot.
So it was the administration not filling the position, not the city council, because we funded the positions, right?
You funded the positions in 2020.
Right.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to get it clear because it was paraded around that this city council had defunded the police department. So if this administration had hired those people, then we would have been in some trouble as well. So it's kind of like by them not hiring and them saying that we defunded caused that issue. I'm done with the question. That's all I need to know.
any other questions?
I feel like, I'd like to respond to that. Still saying that even if we have filled those positions, the city would have been under budget. That's the point I'm trying to make. We did not go over budget. I'm not talking about an operating gain. We were still under budget. So that means even if those positions had been filled, we have budgeted for the position.
We'd still have a surplus even without.
Well,
Yeah, more than likely.
Let me step in
It
here,
helped us with operation.
if you would,
Yes.
Mr. Turner. Let me say a couple things, because it worries me when people get some information, not all of it, because they misunderstand. There are three issues. There's long-term debt, there's annual income and outgo, which is your annual debt or surplus, and then there's cash flow. The problem the city has had for eons, it seems to me, has mostly been cash flow. There have been true debt issues, both long-term and annually too. But we've definitely always had a cash flow problem. One of the reasons for that is because cities cannot borrow for operating purposes. So you've just been given a great example of it tonight. We haven't received our property taxes yet. We also haven't received all the money from the water department that we normally would have by now. And that's because of the winter. That's a cash flow issue. It deals with the winter storm and some of the cash outlays that had to go out immediately that took time to get caught up. So we're just now getting our cash flow back at the water department so that they can pay the city, but what the city's supposed to get. So because of those two issues, our cash flow is not good. The biggest, but our long-term is good. Our quarterlies are good, but our cash flow ebbs and flows based on some of these more erratic things like this year is the property tax issue. And it's also the winter storm. It created some issues. What that pandemic money has helped us do, since we can't borrow from a bank to operate on until we get the revenue to solve the cash flow problem, which is how a business would do it, how a farm would do it. We can't do that. So what we're doing, we just have to sustain that cash flow debt going forward, not pay bills until we get it, that sort of thing. Basically live in check to paycheck is what I would say we were doing. What we can do now that pandemic money has had the cushion that Mr. Turner is talking about that prevents us from having those kind of a crises when it comes to paying our bills on time. So that when we do get the property tax money, when the water department is back where they're making payments to the city on a regular basis again, and by the end of the year that will happen, then everything is good. So there are three issues. On the police issue, there's money and positions, and then there's the authority to promote into those positions. There are two or three different issues. And the council did take money away from the police department and said, and when you get back, then we can talk about restoring that money. And we're going to talk about that later tonight also. So I'll push that one forward, but I want to make sure to be clear, which was the word that was used earlier, to be clear, that's what's clear about our situation financially. So I just wanted to clear that up. Any other questions for Mr. Turner? All right, we're going to go on. Are you through, Mr. Turner? You have anything else?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, we're going to move on to fees for event cleanups. Mr. Johns, are you on?
Yes, sir.
I'll tee this up, but this is an old issue the council is more familiar with than I am even. After events that we have downtown, despite the best intentions, we usually are faced with some pretty serious cleanup issues that also take us away from our regular cleanup issues, which are substantial anyway. And so it's been discussed by the council for many, many years, I think, how to address that, how best to address that. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Jones.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead.
yes. I'm asking the body to see if y'all can go ahead on and where we can come up with a fee for the cleanup. I mean, in the past, we've been going back working on Sundays, and the city been paying for that overtime. I'm asking if we can do like $1,000 for the cleanup, and all this money be reimbursed if they clean up. If they don't clean up, they could lose that $1,000 deposit and probably be still owe more. It depends on how many employees we have to come out to clean up. So I'm asking we tag it with like $1,000 for cleanup fee for any event. That's with everybody.
But let me ask you a couple. So would the fee be assessed after the event, or would it be a deposit that we keep?
A deposit before the event. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, any questions from members of the council for Mr. Jones?
Yeah, you want us to pass a ordinance or a resolution or something that will, $1,000 be attached to anybody that wants to have a festival or event.
Festival, event, car show, any kind of event.
Okay, if they'd put up $1,000 on the front end and it to be reimbursed if they clean up. If not, then we'll use that money to take care of the cleanup,
Yes, sir.
or more if it costs more.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think I understand what you're saying. Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah, can we table this issue until the second meeting in October? I'd like to see us table it until October, the second meeting in October.
I mean, what's the purpose of what's the reason, Mr. Franklin?
I mean, there has to be no reason. I just think we should just table this because that's one thing we should do because I'm just being aware of this tonight, and I don't owe any explanation, but just table it. For me, I just want to table it, and I mean that's all I can tell you. Let's table it for me, and if it dies, it dies. But my motion is to table this into the second meeting in October.
Well, we can approve it.
I don't miss Ms. Sangham, just, hold on. We have a motion
There's a
on the
motion.
table. We have a motion on the table we have a motion to table the discussion about $1,000 deposit cleanup fee for our deposit for events held in the city. Is there a second? Until October 2nd. Is there a second? There's a second. Okay, motion fails for lack of a second. Mr. St. Columbia?
What I was gonna suggest, I mean, if you want to make it retroactive after October, we can do that. I mean, that's no problem. If you want to just go through this year of January, but I don't see why we can't put it on right now. And any event, we put the $1,000 up, do it now and get it over with. Why we have to wait or table it or postpone it? I mean, if you don't want to do it this year, we can pass it, but make it retroactive after January the 1st. But I think we ought to do it right now. Blues Festival, just tell them they have to put up $1,000 too. Anybody that's going to put on a festival, and even though we've approved it, we can go back and tell them they'll put up $1,000. I think anybody that wants to put on a festival or an event that's going to mess up the streets, we need to have a deposit. I agree. We need to have a deposit.
Other questions or comments of Mr. Jones or about this issue?
Like I said, in the past, the city is the one paying for it. We paying overtime to probably about 8, 9 employees to go down there and clean up. So, Mr. Franklin, if that's what y'all want to continue to do, I mean, y'all in charge of the funds, then I mean, that's up to y'all. But I recommend that we put up a deposit, you know. But like I say, once these events is over with, it's the street and sanitation got to go down there and do the cleanup. And the city's the one paying for it.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to support, festivals, and I support all of them. I think they're good for our town, but it's another thing to subsidize them. Sometimes we might want to subsidize them. Actually, that's not something that would necessarily always be a bad idea. But I do think that we do spend a lot of money to clean up after these events, even despite the best of intentions. I think we had the first one post-COVID. They had good intentions. It was the event was fine. There was no problem with the event. I was glad they had it, but and they tried. but it was so bad after that event. And I don't think that was even, they cleaned up about half of it. And it was still pretty bad. So we spent
Yes.
a lot of time cleaning up after it. And that's not unusual. I mean, I think this was something a couple of council members are saying they're having a hard time hearing. I hope it's not me. Anyway, I know this is something that predates my time. Y'all have been talking, Mr. St. Columbia, you've been here all the time. I know this has been discussed a long time.
Yeah, I know for a fact, when the Knights of Columbus rented their hall out, you had to put up a deposit for cleanup, and if you did not clean up, they would give you a deposit. In fact, they would make you give them a check, and they wouldn't even cash it until after the event was over. And if you cleaned up, they just hand you a check back to you. They didn't even cash it. But in most places where if you rent a building, or you'll have to put up a deposit, cleanup deposit. I think that's pretty standard in any business operation. I think we need to have a deposit for festivals and events held on the streets and messed up the city. I'll make a motion that we put up $1,000, make them put up $1,000. Yeah, deposit for it.
Okay, so Mr. St. Columbia moves that we adopt $1,000 deposit upfront requirement for events that have events or festivals anyway. Do we want to define that better, or do we want to say festivals and events that can? Let's just leave it at that, I guess. In the city of Helena-West. Is there a second?
Okay.
Mr. St. Clemens made adoption of $1,000 deposit for events in Helena-West. Is there a second? Okay.
All right.
All right. Sounds like that much. That's lack of a second.
I have a comment.
Any other discussion about it? Go ahead here, Mr.
Yeah, I have a comment on that issue. I'm not against having a deposit. I think it should be spelled out in the permit request, since it would be a matter of contract. They agree to clean up or forfeit the deposit. And so I'm not opposed to doing it. I think we should do it, but I think it should be in the permit so that they can, they'll have adequate notice of what the requirements are. And then we need to determine what is it going to be. How long do you have to remedy or make the situation right before we take your deposit? And it all needs to be spelled out in the permit request. That way it's in writing and everybody understands and knows what's required of each side.
Mr. Jones, you want to?
I agree with Mr. Etherly. I agree with you on that. I mean, is it something that the city attorney can draw up, or y'all vote on tonight to get it where once they get their permit, it's added on then? I mean, what's your opinion on it, city attorney?
And I have a question also. So would that be for the ones that are coming up, or we need to say, make it known because we have maybe 3 coming up. Would those people be included, or will we start after that, or do we need to start another month? Or, we need to decide what we're going to do before we vote on it.
Well, we start with everybody. We can start now, tonight, if you want to.
Well, my opinion is that these people have already.
No, I don't. Just a second. I think Ms. Crockett, go ahead.
I think, in my opinion, these people have already been granted these permits without that in it. So how do you go back and tell them now we're charging you? Because, if you had told somebody up front, maybe they didn't want to have it. But we've already granted these days. So I think we should get it all spelled out and everything before we do anything.
That was my question, Ms. Crockett. I was trying to see, are we going to move forward after these events, or how are we going to work it? It needs to be worded as Mr. Etherly said, but are we going forward after these, or are we going to do it now?
I think it should be after.
I don't think it's that difficult of an issue. I think anybody who's been granted a permit, but the event hasn't taken place, I think we have the authority to revoke that permit if they don't want to comply.
There you go.
Well, I agree with what has been said. I agree with what Ethel just said. I'm responding to Mr. Jones' question. Andre Valley, City Attorney. I'm sorry. You do have authority to revoke any permit because of the issue. I think that it does need to be a part of the permit process. One of the things that we continue to discuss in city council meetings, but have never taken action on, is the issue with cleanup and the issue with security. And I think that both of those need to be spelled out in our permits going forward. It's up to the council. If you all want to go back and tell them, hey, we're revising your permit, requiring you to pay a deposit, requiring this for everybody, and the deposit is $1,000. Now, the mayor raises a salient point, and that is, okay, are you differentiating between permits and these small events, these festivals, and these car shows and small events? Are you charging the same $1,000 deposit? Is your deposit going to be based just on, because it's going to take far more than $1,000 if these large festivals don't clean up than it would if a small car show doesn't clean up. So I think you have to look at that, and we may have to have language that says, hey, if you anticipate 5,000 or 10,000 people, your deposit be this much. If you're anticipating 500 people, it'll be about this much. I don't know which way do you all need to go with that, but the short answer is yes, you can charge it to $1,000 if you want to do it. Yes, you can amend their permit because at this point they're doing advertising, but they haven't paid the city anything. So we don't require any fees for a permit, and we never have required a fee permit. And that's another thing that you all can discuss going forward is, are you going to start charging permitting fees? Because the city blocks off the streets, uses police officers, does all those types of things, and festivals, car shows, etc. just get the benefit, and the city reaps no pecuniary interest in it other than the goodwill and the tax dollars that the businesses garner doing it. The city doesn't get much off any of these festivals.
Comment question. The city clerk will be the one who will collect the monies that's put up, and if they're forfeited, does it go into the general treasurer? Where does it go? And I know that the Blues Festival pays the city for cleanup, but if they have to pay a fee could they get their own cleanup and not pay the city for cleanup? I'm just wondering. I'm wondering if we're thinking this out, and
go ahead.
If we're thinking this out, if we need to think about it and get something in writing and before we act on this.
To answer part of your question, if I had my druthers, they would contract with city for cleanup, and I'm saying they in general in terms of festivals, car shows, events, as well as for police protection. I think the thing is we rely on the entities to privatize these things, and then the city still had to come back and use its force, its manpower, et cetera, to come up after. I think the thing is that many times we give them the options, but every year we come back and have this same discussion where someone is bemoaning or lamenting what transpired at one of the events, when really we just need to go ahead and look at it. This is what the city charges. And I think your deposit needs to be based upon something. Mr. Jones has stated that it takes 8 or 9 people to clean up. Well, what is that approximate cost? Deposit should be directly related to the actual cost of what it's going to take to clean up. $1,000 is just arbitrary and capricious. It's just a number that's thrown out.
Top of your head,
what is the actual cost? Because if it costs a weekend where we're spending $2,500, and the deposit price would be $2,500, whatever the anticipated costs are. Because I think the two need to be linked together. And there's a nexus between what our deposit is and what our actual expenditures would be to do it, because we don't want somebody to put a cost just there. We don't want just a Pyrrhic assessment as to what a deposit would be, because then if they paid $1,000, but Mr. Jones took $4,000 to $5,000 to clean up, then we're still back at square one.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Think we
just
need-
basing it on the past experience we done went through with this, Mr. Valley. I mean, we hadn't had no major cleanup where, I mean, I think during the Blue Fest cleanup, we got paid for that, for the cleanup. But the cleanup that we actually had to go back and do, I'm not gonna call nobody names out, some of these small events, we still had to go back and clean up. And I think that $1,000 minimum, I'm really just throwing that $1,000 out there to try to help everybody, because you're gonna have some church events coming and probably can't pay a dime. You know, but if they can write us a check for $1,000, I mean, whatever we can do to work with these people. But I'm
So if they can't pay, Mr. Jones, if they can't pay a dime, how are they gonna pay $1,000? It's fine. I don't have a problem with it, but I think we need to think about it and just not stop throwing things out. We need to look at it. I agree with what the city attorney said.
Why don't I just, because we have a long, hold on, Mr. Franklin, hold on. Why don't we do this? We have an A&P director now. Why don't I ask Hunter Gardner to look at what Clarksdale and other cities do when it comes to these issues, and come back and work with Mr. Jones and come back with a suggestion.
It's gonna be more than $1,000 then. I mean, but it's y'all choice.
Well, if that's what, if that's a reasonable thing that other cities are doing, then we might want to do it. I would say, what it mostly is a motivation to clean up after yourself. It's one thing to put up a deposit. It's another thing. I mean, we're just going to hold the check. We're not going to deposit it anyway. It's another thing to just not, all of a sudden the event's over. You've worked hard on it. You're exhausted. And you say, forget it. We pay taxes, let the city do it. But the problem is the taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for their specific event if they're not willing to clean up after themselves. So we want an incentive. It's one thing whether or not we make money off of it. It's another thing when it costs us money. So we want an incentive to keep it from, costing money that it shouldn't cost, I guess is what I'm saying. So is there any disagreement or objection to just asking him to look around and get with Bobby and see what other cities do and look at their forms?
Well, I got just this one thing. The venue where the people are having the event, like the car shows and stuff, this is just me speaking about it. The parks is a venue that we cut. We have to cut and maintain the parks and clean the parks. The main stage in downtown, we used to cut the stage area. We do not cut that. The Delta Heritage cut that. We gave that up to let them cut the levee and around the main stage. We gave up that. I understand it. We're talking about getting the trash and stuff, but the people who runs the Delta Culture Center and Delta Heritage, they cut around the main stage and those levees. We don't cut those. So I think if that's the case, we need to start paying them as well for keeping up our property. If we're gonna charge people to have different venues like the park, as Mr. Jones said, the park, that's something that Mr. Jones them have to keep maintaining. If they're gonna have a car show, then we need to set a permit fee for that. We're down here with the main stage and stuff. We don't cut that anymore. Am I correct? We don't cut that. So
we cut one section of it, and that's over there behind the KIP, that little building right there on the side, left hand side. We cut behind them. Delta cut. I don't know if this city property or not, by down on that hill, but they have always cut that.
Well, they did. They weren't always cutting it when Mr. Hoskins was here. They decided.
No.
I'm telling you, I've been here a long time to know that they decided. Mr. Hoskins decided, because when I first got on the council, we were cutting it, and Mr. Hoskins decided that's when we got rid of. There's no debate about it. I mean, I apologize for going back and forth. It's whatever y'all want to do, but I know that the city hasn't cut that in the past 10 years since I've been here, the 8 years, because we stopped, we missed the Delta Coast Center said they would keep that in the main stage cut for us. And they have been doing that for the past 8 years that I'm aware of.
Okay, are there any other questions? We got other things on the agenda. If we're not gonna make a motion or do anything tonight, it doesn't sound like we are. If there's no objection, we'll move on, and I guess we'll come back, Mr. Jones, and see what we find out. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the next thing, well, which is an event permit for the Legendary Blues Festival. Mr. Raymond Sims, are you on tonight? Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Sims. It's Mayor Smith. So you're, there you are. As you know, we usually let the main event organizer present. So I'm going to recognize you to present the Legendary Blues Fest for Saturday, September 4th. The copy of the permit is in the packet. Mr. Sims, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. Hey, I come before you today in reference to the 9th annual Legendary Blues Festival. And I'm looking for a permit to have this festival on September the 4th in the downtown area, the pavilion to be more specific. The streets that I have an interest in will be Cherry Street and portions of Missouri. Basically the same thing we've asked for in the last 9 years. Basically the exact same thing. That's what I'm asking for. A permit for this event scheduled for
I'm sorry. Any questions for Mr. Sims? Thank you. Mr. Sims, you still on there with us?
Yes, I'm here.
I don't see it.
One question,
Mr. St. Columbia.
Mayor. Mr. Sims, you've had this in past years, I know, because I've been down there. And I think you've done a fantastic job with that festival. When you finished, you took care of cleaning it up, cleaning the place up.
I think so.
Okay.
On the last festival, I did go back Sunday, and I probably had to put in 2, maybe 3 hours because the gentleman that was cleaning up, for some reason, I noticed things that was left on stage, on that stage in other areas. So I went back that Sunday personally and made sure everything was in order. The only problem I could ascertain was some of the areas that were used to the trash in were basically full. So that probably was accomplished from the guys that I had filling up your area. That's the only problem I ran into. But on Sunday of last year, or should I say 2 years ago, I did work an additional hour and a half to put things in the order that I thought it should be in this spread.
The city didn't have to send people down there to clean up.
I certainly hope not. If they did, I had to do a lot myself. For a fact, I did have to clean up myself. Okay. But I did come back after. I think it was Sunday. It was maybe 80%, and then I had to do another 20% on my own. So yes, that did happen.
Mr. Sims, I noticed Mr. Jones hadn't signed off on the permit. It's in the packet. And Mr. Jones, are you still on?
Yes, sir.
And I'm sitting here reading the permit. It says that the event coordinator has met with the director and finalized any street sweeping cleanup for street closures, cleanup, and trash removal. I guess we need to address that in your signature before we move on, because I think the permit has to be signed off on for everybody. So I didn't know if you or Mr. Sims want to talk about that.
Mayor, I have done basically all I can do as it relates to doing the festival in Helena. And I would like to either have it approved tonight, because I definitely have a lot of money invested. So if it's not going to be in Helena, if we don't want it, I need to know. That's important. I missed last week. That was on me. I had some kind of problem with the computer that I was with. But what I'm asking for is, I think I got about 6 weeks at a max in order to put the festival on here. And if the city council will approve it, I understand. But if for some reason it's not approved, I can understand that too. But I really need to know. For as cleanup is concerned, I think we've done a good job. And but you know, that's my feelings. Okay.
Mr. Valley, do we have to have all the directors sign off before we vote on it?
The director should sign off. That's part of the that's part of it. The permit requires everybody's signature, and I guess the salient point is, Mr. Jones, you've seen the permit. What say you on this permit? Because it requires all the signatures.
I'm not trying to stop him. We also had to go down there and clean up too, Mr. Raymond. That last year before this COVID kicked in. You know, I'm not trying to put you out there. I'm just gonna keep it real. We went down there also and cleaned up that Sunday morning. And I think we stayed down there till approximately about 2 o'clock, which Miss Sandy probably can go back and show from that last, I think, September Fest, and she can pull that record to show that I had a crew out there working. But now, if I don't mind signing it, if we're gonna do this deposit thing, it's no problem. If you're gonna get somebody to clean it up, that's fine, and I will support that. I mean, but if you're gonna put up $1,000 deposit, like I say, I got to get these guys on a Sunday to come down there and clean up. And I mean, this ain't just the only one. We've been having the same problem too with the car shows. We done had it in the park, and we done had it downtown on Cherry Street also. But when they had it on Cherry Street, we still had to go back and clean up.
As a practical matter, have the two of you all, you hadn't signed off, but have you actually talked about the level of cleanliness that you're, because Mr. Sims is saying it's clean to his satisfaction, and Mr. Jones is saying, well, no, it wasn't clean to my satisfaction. Well, and that's
I think the problem is, Mr. Riley, is when these vendors pull out of there, Raymond might go through there and check it early in the morning or whenever. But if some of those vendors still in there, Mr. Sam, man, trust me, they leave bags of garbage, bags of cooking oil, all kinds of stuff left out there on the side of the road. You know, when they pull out, they don't take it nowhere. They just leave it right there on the side. And I think I told another council member that maybe you checking it, but you ain't checking it probably once they pull out of there. Because that would be our heavy cleanup right up through there on Cherry Street after those vendors leave.
So, Mr. Jones, I have a question. Are they supposed to move once it's bagged up, are they supposed to take all that away?
I mean, Raymond would be in charge of that because I mean I think
any festival. I mean, anybody, just so we'll know. So
well, who's ever in charge of, I mean, whoever paying, like I say, if they paying like the Blue Fest or the car show, if they got a paying for a permit or whatever, or saying they're gonna clean up, they supposed to remove it.
Okay, I just wanted to.
Yes, ma'am.
Are they providing a dumpster or anything to put this in?
Yes, ma'am.
This refuse in?
Yes, ma'am.
And the dumpster is placed on spot. I mean, down.
Yes, ma'am. Right there on Missouri Street in that hole.
Okay.
In fact, 2 of them.
Okay, just.
So what's the will of the body at this point? We have a permit, but it lacks one signature.
like to see the festival. It has gone on for 7 or 8 years. And like I said, I remember at the last one that they started, I was there, they were starting to clean up prior to the end of the festival. We keep talking about a fee or whatever. I thought we were going to look into this and you were going to have somebody from the A&P Commission. So I don't understand why we keep talking about the $1,000 at this point. If we're going to look into it and try to assess something that is accommodating for everyone. I'd like to see the festival go on. And if you need a motion to pass this festival, you have it from me.
Hey, that's fine, Ms. Ford. Now, let me get a motion from you. Now, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. So we gonna continue to do the cleanup and the city taxpayer gonna pay this? I mean, the city gonna pay the taxpayers dollar out for cleanup? So you agree with that too?
I don't mean to be disrespectful to you either. However, we said that we would put this in the hands of the A&P Commission to come up with a document or something that will address all festivals or gatherings that we have down on Cherry Street.
Thank you, Ms. Ford and Mr. Jones.
Again, second Ms. Ford's motion.
I'm taking it, Ms. Ford. You said if you need a motion, so you want to make a motion to approve the permit, right? I'm just clarifying that you're making a motion to approve the permit for the Legendary Blues Festival.
Yes, I am.
Okay, Ms. Ford
Second.
Second by Mr. Franklin. The only point of order I would have, or parliamentary question, I guess, would be, Mr. Valley, are we required to have all the signatures before they vote on
I believe that we are. I think Mr. Jones said he has no objection to sign it. Mr. Jones, are you saying that you're going to sign this tomorrow?
If they agree, I'm gonna say this again, Ms. Valley. If they agree to pay our department to clean, I mean, who gonna pay the city to do the cleanup? We've been doing this for 3 years straight. And I'm quite sure we're probably gonna go back again and clean up again. You know.
Okay, can I say this? Is it any way possible, because Mr. Sims is saying that he thought that it was clean to satisfaction, and you're saying, Mr. Jones, that you had to go back. Is there any way that we can do, you could do something like a walkthrough, like after the festival or the next morning, so that you can show him if something is not right, or he can show you what he thinks is right, you know, because if y'all not there at the same time, there's no way of one or the other knowing if it's satisfactory.
I mean, he can come by and see me tomorrow morning, but yeah, I can do that too, Miss Crockett.
Okay, so you saying you will sign it tomorrow morning?
Yes, after we talk tomorrow. I'm not going to agree, but I mean, just let him come by and see me tomorrow.
What are you not agreeing to, Mr. Jones?
Mr. Jones,
I haven't been through this, y'all. I mean, again,
we have to have your signature before we could pass.
All right, let him come see me in the morning, Miss Crockett. Let me talk to him, and I might just sign it.
And Mr. Sims, are you agreeing to cleaning up?
I think that I've cleaned up every time that we have a festival. I think I'm about as disappointed as anyone else, and I'm disappointed in what's going on in my city. I didn't want to be a part of this, but I am at this time. I have cleaned up to my satisfaction. I'm pretty sure that it will be to yours. And anytime that I'm up Sunday at 7 o'clock in the morning and I work 4 or 5 hours, I was upset too, but I did clean it up because that was a promise that I made to the city council that it would be clean. So I personally cleaned it. It wasn't fully clean, maybe 80%, but I came in and I did the rest. And that's about, I mean, I don't really see much I can say about that. That's what I have done. And so.
Mr. Sims, do you mind just meeting with Mr. Jones or visiting with him tomorrow about the cleanup and what's, I think Ms. Davis or somebody said, or Ms. Ford, what the expectations are so that you understand when we're not on a meeting, a public meeting and all that, just listen to each other about what he's expecting in terms of cleanup. Do you mind doing that?
Mr. Mayor, I know exactly what he's expecting.
didn't catch
Yes,
all
sir. I
that.
understand exactly what Barbara Jones is expecting. Okay, and what I'm saying is, if you guys would understand, if it can't be approved, I need to know. And the idea that I can go through a lot, I just can't do that now. And it's not something I want to do in my life. And if it can't be done, I do understand. No hardship. I was hoping to do a blues festival in downtown LA. It's my hometown, and we have done, once again, 9 of them. And I have invested a lot of money. I don't know how much cleanup it does. And a lot of it can be lost. That is something that I do. I invest a lot of money. It may rain, snow, or you may have a thunderstorm on September. I'm willing to take that chance for the city. That's what I'm doing. So to continue to go through that and not be respected enough to understand what I'm doing and why, it's very difficult for me. So I do understand either way. I'm just asking to let me know if I can try to make some moves to have a festival this year. It's not too late now. If I go any longer, it could be.
Well, is there any objection? I do agree with whoever said the expectations need to be clearly communicated. I thought that was a good comment. Is there any objection to going forward with the motion contingent on Mr. Jones' signature, them having an understanding, let's say no later than tomorrow, business time, assigning the permit? Is that a reasonable way to proceed, Mr. Valley?
Under circumstances, it's not ideal, but under circumstances, it's something that gets us from the point. Mr. Sims has 6 weeks. He's done advertisement all over, and as he says, he's almost to the point of no return. So most of these signatures are just pro form that you approve, that it meets with those requirements, and et cetera. I think that Mr. Jones raises some good points, but those points are points for the city council and not for Mr. Jones as to relates to the fees and et cetera. The city council has said that they will take the mayor's advice and wait for A&P. And this permit is currently, as its position proposed, does not have the cleanup for charge or deposit, but it has an understanding from these conversations that Mr. Sims says he's gonna clean it up. I think that the question as it relates to it, everybody's gone through and they've looked at what the event is. And I think at this point that this is a matter of form and that Mr. Jones probably should go ahead and sign it. And I think that you can go ahead and get it done and allow the city council to make the financial issues. He's made his objections clearly on the record that he wants a deposit for all of these festivals. He's frustrated with it. He's frustrated with the use of his manpower and affect his budget. He's made that very clear to the city council. But I think as it relates to this, I think at this point, Mr. Jones should sign it. And we should move forward from this point. The city council should make a determination as to whether they're going to, he did give notices to Mr. Sims and his festival, as well as the Blues Fest, as well as the gentleman from Atlanta and his festival, as to, hey, we may be considering making you make a deposit, but let them know that as they go through this process. But continue with the process and let's move forward. And I think his signatures matter of form at this point. Mr. Sims clearly met all the other requirements. And the objection is just simply the cleanup.
That's fine. My question is just a parliamentary one. Are we allowed to move forward?
I understand, but the parliamentary question led me to the legal part as well. So I think that yes, you can. Yeah,
I guess it's the same thing, Ron.
Yeah, you can go ahead and approve it, subject to Mr. Jones' signature. Mr. Jones wants to meet with Mr. Sims, and Ms. Crockett has said, and I've said it, I think there needs to be a walkthrough to make it clear as to what we expect for cleanup. And if it takes 3 bins, if it takes 4, whatever we need to do to make it available. And once Mr. Sims is a highly intelligent man, he understands. Once you explain it to him, he'll get it done. But with that, I yield to you, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've talked enough about it and heard enough about it to go ahead. But there's a motion and a second. I think without any further discussion, unless there's somebody in the council that wants to make another statement or question, we can go ahead with the vote. If there's no objection. If there is none, then call the roll.
Mayor, may I ask the city attorney to reiterate? He said something about the gentleman from Atlanta with the Gospel Fest. We aren't saying that we're rescinding his permit or anything.
No, ma'am.
Right?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
What I said was, to the extent you're gonna make somebody pay a deposit, they need to be on notice that you may make them pay a deposit. That's all I was saying.
Okay, look.
Thank you.
All right, one more question from Bobby Jones again. All right, we're gonna do that then. If we're gonna start January or September or after October, we need to get this planned out where we don't have this problem again. We coming, debating who gonna do the cleanup.
Well, Mr. Jones, Andre Vela again. I would love that to be implemented. Mr. Ether and I have been saying that yearly, and that's one thing that we need to do. For whatever reason, we hadn't had the wheel to get it done. But I'm kicking it down the road, look at the entire permit, and the permit has more meat in it, so everybody have understanding we can stop having these discussions annually.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the motion? If not, going once,
Can you
twice.
read the motion again, please?
Ms. Ford made a motion that we approve the event permit for the
Can
Legendary
the
Blues
secretary
Festival.
read the motion so we'll know how it's worded? I mean, the clerk,
Ms.
I'm
Ramsey.
sorry, the clerk.
That's okay. To approve the event permit as presented for the Legendary Blues Fest, September the 4th.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the members of the council before we proceed? Okay, if not, Ms. Ramsey, call the roll.
Davis,
Yes.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Crockett, Franklin, Etherly,
Yes.
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 Yes,
Crockett. Okay.
Yeah.
Franklin.
I was hollering yes, but I was muted.
Oh, okay. All right. It's 6 yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Sims.
I'd like to thank you, the mayor and the city council members for the approval of this permit and another opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. I'm not gonna waste a lot of time debating this, but at the last meeting, we discussed appropriations for a parks coordinator for $36,000. We had a resolution, but we didn't have an ordinance. So this time we do have an ordinance on the base pay. And I'll just direct your attention to your packet. It's again $36,000. The resolution is the same. And so I'll open up discussion and entertain a motion or any action for questions.
Yes, Mayor, this is Christopher Franklin. Mayor, from what I was understanding, I had clearly said if we're going to direct anything, we're going to direct that money to be put where we can get the parks cleaned up. I'm just knowing what I had said, and I'm thinking that a lot of other council members followed what I was saying, that we were not at this time in favor for that, but getting those parks up together, because we found out that we have more parks. That $36,000, Mr. Jones could use that to get some of these parks cleaned up. He can use some of that money. I think he'll be more than happy to use that to get those parks in different areas cleaned up. That $36,000 he can use, or some of that money he can be used to clean up some of those parks before we turn it over to anybody. Because like Mr. Edwards said, programs and different things is more than just rolling out basketballs. So I would like to see that we use that money to get those parks up together, up and going and running all together. That's what I thought we were having a discussion about. It wasn't about you getting a resolution together for a salary.
Well, we didn't have a base pay ordinance, and so the resolution was given the appropriations, but not the position. So that's the reason it really wasn't. It didn't have to imminently be done, but we did have a robust discussion about it. So I'm not trying to have another debate. I'll just reiterate the position primarily will be located at the North Helena Armory to keep it open every day like it used to be years ago. And it was successful. We have $36,000 to spruce up the parks. Those parks are already maybe behind. We've had an unusual number of rainy days. And there's no question that we need more grant money. We need more help. We've had a lot of volunteers. We've had Mr. Jones has already done a lot of work on our parks. And we could, and I'd entertain support for $36,000 or $40,000 if you wanted to appropriate it specifically for that. I'm okay with that. But what we can't do is move aggressively ahead without somebody in charge of that. And we cannot keep that armory open unless we have somebody who works for the city there responsible for it and the people who use it. We have we have behind it, we have a bike park that was opened right before I became mayor. That was approved by, it was funded by a grant. It's almost never been used. There's nobody there to operate it. The pandemic was part of that reason. Part of it was getting repairs done. We still need to do some, but the bottom line is we haven't had a successful program in truth since, at least in my regulation. Let me just say it a different way. We have had successful parks and recreation programs in this city long before there was some of the things that we talked about last time, and they all contribute greatly to it, but they don't replace it. And other cities have very successful, robust recreation programs, but you cannot do it without somebody to help do it. And that's what a coordinator would do, is help with all the above. That's what the position's for. And you are each elected officials, you each have a right to your own position. And I respect that, but I'm also an elected official. And I also have a responsibility to respond to what the people of the city want. And I'm going to tell you, they want a robust parks and recreation program. They've wanted one for some time. And for some time, they haven't had one. We are very fortunate to have all the parks that we do have. There are a lot of reasons, and I'm not throwing allegations at anybody for why we haven't had one, but our finances are better now, and there's no good reason whatsoever to not have one now. Pandemic was a good reason, and we're still got one eye open about the pandemic. That's still an issue, but we have to have a coordinator to make a plan. We need to be writing some more grants. We need to be doing more things, not just for this summer, but for next summer. And we need a place for youth to go off the streets and give them something to do, but somebody has to coordinate that. So that, I promised I wouldn't debate it, so I'm gonna shut up. I've already said all that, my apologies. And if somebody wants to repeat that, they're welcome to, because I took up that time, but that's what it's about.
And man, I agree.
Mayor, is there a resolution? Do you have a resolution?
There's a resolution and an ordinance for the base pay. We didn't have the base pay last time.
I don't see the resolution.
And Ms. Davis, while you look through your resolution, can I say this, Mr. Mayor? All that sounds good, Mr. Mayor. But what I'm thinking is this: the park thing. What's somebody gonna be coordinating? I ought to be coordinating getting that grass cutter. Mr. Jones 13, they need help. And if you're gonna get another body to sit around, this person, I'm saying right now, and I'm just one vote. No, sir, I can't do it. And it's not because it's something that you're trying to do, but right now with COVID, with COVID hitting the youth like it is, this van is out. I don't think we should be trying to do anything like that right now, because with this van targeting the young people, I think we should wait, because guess what? A lot of our folks are not. We should be pushing for our folks to get vaccinated before we try to do all what you're trying to do right now, and that's not going to work right now. I think we can look at it at the end of the year When we start looking at the budget, we can look at it then. But right now, I can't see it because guess what? If you were so avid about parks and recreation, when these fireworks got out, look at that issue that we had, and we were concerned about our young people having something to do. When these fireworks and all this stuff got out, we've been more concerned at the 4th of July. So my thing is this: other people can vote besides me. I'm not in favor of it right now because due to this variance that's out that's attacking these young people, I'm not for it until there is a plan. You only telling us what you would like to see and how parks were successful in the past administration. We haven't had a parks department since the Willis administration and that's how Mr. Jones got all those employees in his department because he took on the park and recreation people. So at this time, I'm not for it until you can come up with a better plan on instead of just rolling out basketballs and giving somebody $36,000 to sit in the building that kids can't come in right now. So I think you ought to think about that.
I got one question.
Mr. Jones, you got to get the mayor has gotten on us about being recognized. So you have to ask the mayor to be recognized because other people want to talk, and the mayor has shut me down and other members of the council down. I think they have to get recognized.
Mr. Jones.
This coordinator, he also gonna take the responsibility of the grass cutting too, right?
Well, obviously he can't cut the grass by himself, but he would take responsibility for making sure that what we need done gets done.
Mr. Jones, hold on, Mr. Jones, because you're right. Hold on, but Mr. Jones, remember when you took over the street department, right, or the sanitation department? Remember they gave you when they got rid of it, they gave you all those people over there, right, to cut that grass. Hold on, Mr. Jones, hold on, because I'm trying to make a point. Remember when we were getting y'all that fact about you and Oscar about that fact about because y'all remember they had to cut the levees, the river park. Go over there and look at the river park, Mr. Jones. Those are part of our parks too that the park and recreation had to cut. When they wanted to have the volleyball thing down at the river park, all those come together. So when the mayor talking about $36,000, that's a lot of work for somebody to roll out some basketballs. But Mr. Jones, I'm saying this, that you got to, as public works director, there's a lot of parks and stuff to cut. And $36,000 could really, hold on, Mr. Jones, $36,000 could help you out tremendously getting those parks up together and getting everything up to code, right or wrong. When it help your department, when it help some people get out there and get them parks up to code, because you know that you can.
I really don't want the responsibility because we the one cutting it.
Well, I'm finna go.
Well, hold on.
Well, let me, Mr. Jones,
I mean, I think the mayor probably can come up with them buying getting some equipment or something to cut with. I'm willing to work with any coordinator he get, but it will help us out a lot. And I'm quite sure because you had the firemen helping the last park and rec director. I mean, the fire department was cutting, the parks, and I'm quite sure they can do it again if he did hire a coordinator.
But
they got equipment.
We also those grasshopper lawnmowers. The Parks and Recreation had their own equipment. I'm sorry, Ms. Davis. The Parks Department had their own equipment before we closed that position down and moved everybody. Even the golf course, we had all the equipment over there. So I'm beginning to wonder where the equipment went because we sure had it.
I mean,
let me just stop everybody for a second because we're trying to stay on clock here. And all of these questions that everybody asks, that we're not creating a Parks and Recreation department with this resolution. What we're creating is a coordinator to help us do and respond to all of those concerns and some of the immediate issues. And it's a lot for one person to do, actually, and it's impossible to do without somebody. So if you want somebody to talk about what we've done in the past, how we can get more equipment, and if you want to add $75,000, don't stop at 36. Mr. Franklin, add $75,000 appropriations to parks for parks maintenance specifically. We'll spend it on that, and this coordinator will help us coordinate it to get it done. And it's not easy. Y'all put $75,000 in the budget to help us with demolition and grass cutting, and it's not been easy to find the contractors to do it. Just like it's been difficult for everybody to find help to cut grass. It's been very difficult even when you have the money, but it's almost impossible if you don't have somebody working on it all the time. And we need a coordinator to coordinate it and to listen, talk to y'all, to the council, talk to all the stakeholders. We've already got a small beginning of a plan, I would say. That's what we've had several meetings about already. To build on top of that and develop a real plan for a real Parks and Recreation Department, which is not what this does. But it does help find a coordinator to help us do that. That's what this does. And it's $36,000 we can afford. And we can afford $75,000 to spruce up our parks. If y'all are willing to appropriate it, we'll do it. And this coordinator will help us do it. But I'm telling you, the people in this town are wanting to have something for their young people to do. And they're right. And we haven't had a response to that even before the pandemic. That bicycle park has been sitting there not being used since well before the pandemic. And the reason is because there's no grown-up down there to supervise it. So that's just one example. So I didn't want to go off on this. And again, I apologize, but I don't want to be mischaracterized as a Parks and Recreation Department. That's going too far, too fast. What this person would do is help coordinate the beginning of something like that and to help us direct and focus on our Parks and Recreation and our programs. And that's what we need. That's the first step is all this is, first step. You want to put 75,000 in there for this and I'll support it. Absolutely.
Well, I would like to see a Parks and Recreation coordinator with a plan for our city and our youth.
I mean, we do need one for the kids.
The problem is, Davis, is the chicken and egg. We've done about all the planning we can do with the resources we've been given at the time. You need a coordinator to do the plan and listen to your ideas and others about what that plan should look like and give it the attention it deserves. Nobody's going to voluntarily just come out of the blue and do that.
Mayor, if I can,
At least they haven't done it so far. I'll say that.
We can have a plan as to what they want to do, as to what we're going to do to move this city forward for our youth.
and Ms. Davis,
Well,
if I
I think you have to have
can,
a coordinator. Your best step has to be a coordinator in order to get to that point.
well, Mayor, now this is what I want to say. You started saying hasn't been nobody, but Ms. Davis, you know, we had this conversation before. Man, you got somebody's over there at that community center running that, and they are and posting pictures on Facebook. So you said nobody's over there, but we're letting somebody use it. And we had decided the Boys and Girls Club until you came into office. Now it's strange that you said we can afford $36,000 when we was only paying the Boys and Girls Club $24,000, and they were using the facility to do that, and you wouldn't get the roof fixed. But now all of a sudden you said we can throw $75,000. Don't backtrack. Remember what you said in these live meetings that we could get. We couldn't afford to pay the Boys and Girls Club because they were operating. They were running programs out of there, and it's still. You said now you're saying we can afford $75,000. Well, we could pay the 24 and use the other $30,000 to make sure we help out with the Parks Department, to take care of the Parks Department. You want to throw a whole nother salary and or two or three salaries in there now. If we don't have, if there's not a plan on the table right now, somebody coming with a plan to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to work. Mr. Ether said it better, and I'm going to be quiet. That it's more than rolling out basketballs. And Mr. Jones is saying that, hey, he welcomes it, but you're still going to need somebody with a plan. You just tell us what you want to see done. There's nobody. There ain't no plan.
No, I'm telling you to do any of the things that has been said tonight or at the last meeting. You're going to have a coordinator to do it. What's changed since I came into office is good management, and now we can afford it. That's what's changed. We couldn't pay the Boys and Girls Club when I came into office, and we couldn't fix the roof either. And that's what's changed. Now we can afford to do it. So I'm not going to speak for the Boys and Girls Club, but that didn't fit into their plan anymore anyway. It was, in my understanding, that things have changed. But the bottom line is, what is it today? What is it today? Today is you have one church who's using it as an after-school program, and thank God they are, because it's a good program, but it's just for a few hours, and we have to let them in and lock the door. We don't have anybody there, and we don't have anybody to dedicate to be there all day. And we don't have the ability to create a proper Parks and Recreation program for all the reasons you've all given. You need somebody who is listening to that, putting together a real plan. We've already had an initial plan. That's about all we can do and all we can afford until we get a proper coordinator who's doing this full time. Now, after that, all of this stuff that you're talking about is wonderful. You can all talk to the coordinator about it, and we can come back and do a more proper plan for a Parks and Recreation department. But who's going to do this plan if you don't have a coordinator?
Well, man,
Who's going to do it?
all I can say is this, and I'm one vote. I'm gonna tell you like this. Then what I want you to do is get somebody to coordinate that grass together and get them parks up and running. When you get this stuff right, when these parks can be turned over to somebody to manage them, I'm just one vote. Right now, no, sir, I'm not for it. Until these parking stuff get right, I'm not gonna bring somebody in, then they tell me they're gonna get it right. If you got this kind of money to pay a salary, let's get these parking stuff right. Once you get these parking stuff right, to turn over to somebody, and they got a plan to get these parks up and running right, I'm for it. But right now, I'm not gonna give it to somebody, then they're gonna come in and say, well, you know what, I need some more manpower. I can't do it by myself. Well, while you got this $36,000, Mr. Jones can get some folks and contract out or do whatever y'all need to do. But I'm not gonna hear when you hire this person, well, I need some more money. I need some help. I'm just only one person. We need to get it right before we start looking at this position. If you get it right, I'll make you a motion. If you get it right and have it already done, so somebody come in and look, get it up and running, get the parts together, up and running, get them fixed, get them cut, so you can have a person who could come in and hit the ground running. They can't come in, hit the ground running. They got to find folks to cut the grass, because this person makes $36,000. Sure, not going to get on no tractor and cut all these parts. You have to have adequate staff over there with that person. And I'm done.
Okay. Other members of the council besides me, or they want to talk about this? Any questions? Okay. All right. Well, I will welcome, if there's no motion, I just want it to be on the record that I've tried, because you have a city that wants to see this done. And it's a chicken and egg is what it comes down to. You want everything done. You don't want to pay for it to get done. So it's not going to get done, but I'm asking you to do it. I'm asking you nicely. And you know as well as I do that the people in the city want it and they need it. Now, we might not agree on how to do it, but we need to do it. In my opinion, the first step is a coordinator. If the council doesn't agree,
in my opinion, since we're giving out opinions, let me give out mine. In my opinion, at the rate that we are seeing this COVID and everything rising back up, I don't think that it would be wise to open a community center to people's children. And then it'll be said that they got the COVID from the city's establishment, and then it'd be a lot of things. I think this is something that would be great, but at this present time, I'm just not for it either, because I don't want to be responsible for anybody's child with the COVID.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Crocker. Any other questions?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to move on it.
Okay, Ms. Davis. Okay, Ms. Davis is, makes a motion to approve the appropriation and can we do the resolution first and then the ordinance? How do y'all? Can we do both, Andre, Mr. Valley?
You would have to do the base pay is what you would have to do, because you got to create the position first.
Okay.
So, excuse me, can I add something right quick? Because I think the council needs to be aware of it. When you guys asked me to amend the base pay when I made the corrections, I made corrections also to the CDL drafts for $17 an hour. So that's included in there. So if they wanted to pass that, they need to know that that's also included in the base pay. I included it at the same time, so I guess I thought you guys were going to discuss it at the same time.
Oh,
now,
that's
I can take.
Okay.
Yes,
That's in the base pay that's in the packet. Is that what you're saying?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Gotcha.
And so if they want to discuss those things separately, it would take me no time, however they wanted to do it, or if they didn't want to do it all, but if they want to make the changes, I could take one out. It's no problem to make those corrections if that's what they wanted to do.
So let's reiterate before we move forward. It sounds like we need to do a base pay ordinance first, and that base pay ordinance includes the CDL drivers. And that moves them up to, you want to explain that a little bit more, what that moves it up to?
What Mr. Jones had originally asked for, and that was the $17 per hour for the CDL drivers.
Okay, well, I guess we better talk about that since that's in the ordinance. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. I didn't know, I knew the Parks and Recreation, but I didn't know about the CDLs. So I guess we better, Ms. Davis, talk about that briefly before we move forward, since that's in that ordinance. Any questions, Mr. Turner, or anybody on the CDL issue?
I got one question again, Bobby Jones again, Public Work. We've been advertising for what now? Just about a whole year, 8-9 months or so, and we still hadn't got a chance to hire a CDL driver. You know, I'm asking again where we can try to boost it up, base pay to $17, so we can try to get some drivers.
Okay, thank you. So, excuse me just a second. So, Ms. Davis, I'm sorry, Ms. Ramsey, what would
I
the
thought we
ordinance?
just did that to 15.
Excuse me, just a second. What's the ordinance number, Mr. Ramsey? Ms. Ramsey?
19. The ordinance would be 19.
I'm gonna get this right in a minute. Sorry. Okay, Ms. Crockett, go ahead.
I thought that it was supposed to be 15.
They're 15 now, Miss Crockett.
Okay, so did we just do that?
No, ma'am. We done that, I think, when we moved the equipment operator and CDL driver at the same pay, probably about, what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's been, about a year and a half ago.
Do anybody know how long? Because it don't seem like it's been that long.
Probably about a year ago.
I mean, Joe, we did that we did this past winter. We did
But
this
I'm
past winter.
guessing he's saying that he still can't find anybody for $15. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Jones?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Mayor, are we talking about starting at 17? You know, because we never really just go through and think things out. Is it starting at 17? What if you have people that come in with experience? Can you elaborate on that?
Starting would be $17 an hour. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And the only thing I would say is when we look at what's competitive, I mean, you know, we're not the only ones. And you can drive around town and see the signs that are advertising for CDL drivers. If you're willing to be on the road, that doesn't even come close to being competitive. So we have to go for the folks that are tired of the road, don't want to go on the road, and they want benefit. They want to have benefits instead of a 1099 or any of that kind of stuff. And so we're hoping $17 an hour.
Pull them in.
We'll get their attention because we're not getting them right now.
That's with any number of years of experience.
If they graduate and got CDL license, I mean, we need to snatch them because, I mean, they train to drive a truck bigger than ours, and that's an 18-wheeler once they get these CDL license. We driving what you call a straight truck. So they got the experience once they graduate from school. I mean, that's
but there are levels of CDL drivers. So is this a CDL? Is it an A, B? What CDL are you requiring?
You got level A, B. Yeah, A and B. But most of them come in through our department.
In this base pay
what level do you require to drive your trucks?
Level B. But most of them, when they go to school, get these license, they going for truck driving license, the level A. I hadn't ran across now level B. You're gonna go that far, like I say, I got class A license. And most of them gonna rather go because it's pretty much the same thing. They just taking a test in a different truck. Most of them go for the goal of reaching for to be a class A license.
I have a question. We're talking about this $17 an hour at the base pay start. What are the current CDL drivers making?
They had
The starting is 13.
No, I'm talking about right now. What are they making? I didn't not starting.
they're 15 now.
Okay, so if we do the base pay at 17, does that mean that their salary will increase?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, it will.
Yes.
Okay, and when we talk about the levels, it's a class A, a class B, and there's also a class C license in CDL.
That's
But
correct.
the class A is the one that allows you to drive practically anything.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm.
And most of our drivers got class A. Like I say, we don't get no class B to come in too quick to, put in the application. I hadn't ran across a class B the whole entire time since I've been working there to apply for a class A job. I mean, they can get it with a class B, but most people come in, like I said, have a class A license.
Bobby, let me ask you this. I mean, as a practical matter, you and your deputy directors have had to do an awful lot of the driving because we haven't had the CDL drivers. Can you just tell us who is on, how many numbers? Because it's not going to affect you, your deputy directors. You're already making above that. And y'all are in different positions anyway. How many people on the payroll right now does that impact to increase it to
2
17?
people, right? 2 people.
2.
Yes, sir.
And we're trying to hire how many? Or we
got to open for 3. We got to open for 3.
Say that one more time.
We got to open for 3 CDL positions.
So we're hoping it will retain and improve the applicant pool too.
Yes, sir.
And let me say that city has experienced a lot of liability issues as well. So we want the best drivers that we can afford. I'll just put it to you like that. It's very competitive right now. I don't think I have to tell anybody on the council that, we have to rely, if we didn't have Bobby and our deputy directors, we wouldn't be doing our garbage collection and our roadside pickup. We wouldn't be doing it now. We wouldn't be getting anywhere close to doing it. We're late. If we have rain or any other kind of issue that happens, somebody gets sick, somebody's back off on bereavement, we get behind. And y'all hear about it and I hear about it. The biggest reason is we don't have enough CDL drivers. And it's also important that we attract good drivers, safe drivers, people that don't expose the city to liability. And so I definitely support it. So
I mean, I would like to say this. Let me rephrase that. We have had people to come and apply for the job, but when they get there and I tell them to pay, I don't hear nothing else from them. So, I think it would actually help if we go up to $17.
I sure hope it does. So let me clarify, and then we'll take any other questions. But ordinance is number 19. And what it does is, thank you again, Mr. Turner, for pointing that out. And Mr. Valley, if you want to weigh in on this, because I know you drafted it. But it increases the CDL driver base pay to $17 an hour. And it also includes the position for Parks and Recreation Coordinator at $36,000 for one position. So that's what it does. Do we still want to do we have a motion to approve that? And we can still discuss it and ask
Okay,
questions.
I have a question. Who asked for the base pay to be put in for the park?
Actually, I asked for the base pay on the parks. Several of us asked for the base pay on the CDL, I think.
Okay, because I don't think, I'm not for approving the base pay for either one with that position in, because I'm not for funding that position at this time. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but that's just me.
It's correct, because you raised a very good point, Andre.
I'm with you.
Mayor. Here's the issue. The base pay merely creates the position. While the base pay contains both, it only creates the position. It has to be a separate motion after you pass these to fund whichever position you're going to fund. And so the issue that the mayor discussed last week about doing the resolution would have been good for funding, but it's not good for creating a position. It had to be created first under our policy and then funded separately. And so all that this is doing, was Turner brought it out to you, but what this is doing is creating the position as base pay. Now, for those who are operating below base pay, it would give them a raise as it relates to the CDL drivers you have. They would go up to $17 an hour because you were saying there's a standard you get paid. You still need to separately vote on it, but as a practical matter, I think that is something that you have to go through with once you pass this base pay for everybody that's below $17 an hour. For new employees, they would come in at $17 an hour. I don't know. In discussing it here, listening to the mayor and Mr. Jones, it seems that many of the people who you have are already above $17 an hour. About attracting new people who will not work for the current base pay of $13.13 an hour, and that's where we are. But to pass this, you would have to suspend the rules, place on the third and final read, and read the title only, and it would create the position. But creating the position, even the parks position, it didn't fund it until you do something to appropriate the money. This is just giving you the authority to create a position, and there'll be a separate instrument or separate motion to fund the ones. Now, again, the exception to that is if you have anybody that's below base pay that's currently a CDL driver, once you increase base pay to $17 an hour, it would raise them effectively $17 an hour. And I don't know how many of those you have in the city.
So to say that same thing again, if we don't pass the resolution on parks coordinator appropriating it, even though it's in the base pay, it won't happen.
Right, it's not funded.
The other thing you're saying is if they pass the ordinance, it would affect, it sounds like two people's pay would go up. And then the next question, I guess, Mr. Turner, are the other CDL positions already in the budget so that it would affect, as a practical matter, allow us to get, in other words, are they already appropriated or do they need another resolution? Mr.
No,
Turner?
all of the CDL drivers are in the budget.
Okay, so the net effect of passing this ordinance is it raises the salary for two CDL drivers and raises the base pay that we advertise for CDL positions already appropriated to $17 an hour. It doesn't appropriate money for Parks and Recreation, but creates a position so that if an appropriations is ever approved, the base pay is already there. Did I say that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about what Mr. Valley said, or what I said, or Mr. Turner said about it?
Then I got,
and we have a few other things, so go ahead.
We got to look at the overtime we paying to these guys. They doing double routes, so we paying out a lot of overtime due to us not having enough drivers.
So we passed the ordinance, we're going to make a difference on the CDL, not necessarily Parks and Recreation. We'd still have to do the resolution. So let me stop there in the interest of time and ask, does anybody want to make a motion to approve ordinance number, or I'm sorry, to put ordinance number 19 on third and final, to suspend the rules, to place number 19 for third and final reading. I'm sorry. This is the ordinance in your packet. It
So
raises the C. Ms. Davies makes a motion to put ordinance number 19 on third and final reading. Is there a second? Is there a second on the motion to adopt ordinance number, or put ordinance number 19 on third and final reading? Okay. Hearing no second, motion dies for lack of motion. I'll ask for I'll ask for a motion on the resolution, just as a matter of record. And if it passes, it does, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But is there a motion on the resolution for the parks coordinator position?
yeah, how are you gonna have a resolution and it's not in base pay?
Well, again, they're two different things, and you're right. We'd have to have both, but if anybody wants to go
I second Mr. Davis' motion.
on the ordinance or on the resolution.
On the base pay.
Okay. All right, so let me back up then to the ordinance. Ms. Davis, does your motion stand on put ordinance number 19 on third and final reading?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Crockett seconds the motion. Okay, any other questions or comments about the motion to put ordinance number 19 on third and final reading?
Yeah, is this to fund the parks position or the CDL?
It creates a position. It creates a position that does not. It doesn't fund it.
It creates the position and does not fund it. That's accurate. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments about the motion? Okay, not call the roll.
Davis,
Yes.
St. Columbia, Crockett,
Yes.
Franklin,
No.
Etherly,
No.
Ford,
Yes.
St. Columbia. I have 3 yes, 2 no's, 1 absent.
And I vote yes.
Madam Clerk, will you?
Does that?
I thought the mayor
We
could
got a
only
quorum.
vote for the tie. We got a quorum.
He can vote anytime his vote is necessary to pass anything.
I don't think he can to suspend the rules because isn't that a 2/3 of the whole number of the council? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I'll defer to.
Yeah,
Mr.
wait,
Valley.
wait. The number goes up with the mayor. Hold on. Yeah, that would not be 2/3. So it did not achieve it. That would only be 57%. So you need 2/3 vote. So you needed at least 4 of the councilmen.
Okay, so
motion fails.
Any other council members still on that want to vote? Haven't voted. If not, motion fails. So we'll, in the interest of time, unless somebody wants to make a motion, we'll move on the resolution. We'll move on.
I guess I'll just tag a comment on the end of this and just say I'm supportive of the $17 for CDL increase, just not the Parks and Recreation position. If those things are untagged and untied, then I'll fully support the $17.
Okay, and I guess, Mr. Valley, there's not a practical way to do that at this point, is there?
If we take
official copy electronically, he made the amendments. I met with him about it. If he just takes that out, then I don't know how long it will take him. But if he takes that out, then that could be done.
I could take it out and get it to them and within 5 minutes, less than that.
All right, well, let's move on then while they do that and deal with something that I know Ms. Ramsey needs us to do. While you want to work on that, there's an ordinance in your packet to waive bidding on purchase of HVAC units for fire stations at 98 Plaza, 704 Cherry, excuse me. Let's see, I'm sorry, did we get that, Ms. Ramsey? You want to just discuss that real quick?
The unit at 704 Cherry went out and we had to replace it. And then the unit at 99 Plaza Street was getting ready to go out, and both two different air conditioner companies recommended it be replaced immediately. And so we got the best price, and I'd like to ask you to waive bidding so we can pay for them.
Okay, any questions on that? If not, is this ordinance number?
So moved.
Number 20.
What are those prices?
They were 6,200 and hold on a second. They were about 6,200 a piece, and with taxes and everything came up to approximately 14,000.
Okay, so there's a motion, I think I heard a motion by Mr. Franklin to put ordinance number 20 on third and final reading. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Davis seconds the motion. Any other questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Davis,
Yes.
St. Columbia. Mr. St. Columbia has already left the meeting. Crockett,
Yes.
Franklin, Etherly,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
It's 5 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, motion approved.
It's ordinance number 20-21, ordinance waiving competitive bidding in accordance with Arkansas Code annotated section 1458-303, authorizing the mayor to enter into contract to purchase certain equipment for the city of Helena-West Helena for related purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Valley. Is there a motion to, did I already get a motion? Motion to.
So moved.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the time.
Second. Is that Ms. Ford?
Yes.
All right, any other questions or comments? If not, call the roll.
Etherly,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
St. Columbia. He's absent 5 yes.
The motion passes. Do we have an emergency? What else do we have to do on this one?
Has an emergency clause.
Okay.
I don't think I put an emergency clause in it.
No, I see one. This is competitive bidding and yeah, this
Okay.
HVAC, it's got an emergency clause. So is there a motion to adopt emergency clause on ordinance number 20? A motion to
So
adopt.
moved.
Ms. Davis moves adoption of
Second.
the emergency clause. Ms. Franklin seconds the motion. Any questions or comments? If not,
That was
call
Ms.
roll.
Crockett.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Crockett. Sometimes it's hard for me to hear. If no other questions or comments, call roll.
Franklin,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Crockett.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Okay, I was reminded that our agreements were 2 hours for council meetings. Or that was at some point, that was the decision that we do these for 2 hours. We've got an ordinance, we got other things, but we have an ordinance to rescind and repeal community service program, and then we also have the base pay. I don't know if we're ready on that or not. Are we ready, Mr. Valley, on that base pay, or do we want to go ahead with this repeal, rescind?
We can do repeal. Mr. Turner's amending the base pay.
Yeah, I'm sending it right.
Okay, so there's an ordinance in your packet, which I guess would be ordinance number 21, and it repeals the ordinance that was approved in 2016, which was then ordinance number 19, regarding community service program that is run out of district court. It hasn't been used. It's not currently in use. Judge Carter is developing a plan from the courts or for the courts. And when that is concluded, a new ordinance will be prepared in conjunction with his proposal. But in the meantime, that ordinance has been enacted. So the recommendation is that we rescind or repeal the old ordinance. Any questions or comments about that before we move forward? And we can do it after a motion too. But if not, is there a motion to put ordinance number 21 on third, suspend the rules and put it on third and final reading? And I'll still allow time for questions if y'all think of it. Is there a
So
motion
moved.
to put ordinance? Ms. Ford makes it, we put ordinance number 21 on third and final reading. Mr. Franklin seconds the motion. Okay, any discussion about that motion? If not, call the roll.
Ford,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Crockett, Davis,
Yes.
Crockett. I have 4 yes, 2 absent.
Okay.
I
Motion.
said yes, Andy.
Oh, I couldn't hear you. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
This
Motion.
ordinance
Motion.
number 22.
21.
21.
Ordinance number 21 2021 is the ordinance repealing ordinance number 19-2006 regarding the community service program.
Okay, is there a motion to
Yeah,
adopt
just
ordinance number
to
20?
adopt.
Is there a motion?
So
I think that is Mr. Franklin. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Ms. Davis?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Ford. That was
Ms.
Ms. Ford.
Forward. Sorry.
I'm sorry that. Anyway, any discussion about the passage of ordinance number 21? If not, call the roll.
Etherly,
Yes.
Forward,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Franklin,
yeah.
5 present.
Motion passes, and there's no emergency clause, so nothing else to do on 21, right?
Right.
Okay. So it looks, I think we all got a message maybe that Mr. Turner and Mr. Valley maybe has amended the base pay ordinance to take out the parks coordinator position and leave the position raises for CDL drivers. Is that right? Mr. Valley, you ready to, Mr. Turner, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, well, I emailed it to everyone, and everyone I had an email address for, and I just simply deleted the parks coordinator position, and I left in the increase in the base pay for the CDL drivers.
Okay, any comments or questions about that? So, Mr. Valley, we need to, what ordinance number would this be now?
22.
It's- Okay. So, am I correct, this ordinance number 22, which is the base pay ordinance, and removes the Parks and Recreation Coordinator, but it leaves the CDL drivers, excuse me, on to suspend the rules and place it on third and final reading. Is that correct? Is that where we are? 20, what was the number? I'm sorry, 20.
Going to be
Two.
ordinance number 22.
22. I'm
Mayor,
not sure if I said-
you're correct. Suspend the rules, place on third and final reading, reading title only.
Is there a motion? Just, okay, any questions about ordinance number 22? Going once, going twice. Well, I think this is proof that the two
What are you asking for?
Are you asking for a motion?
Yeah, a motion. I'm sorry if
So
you can't hear
moved.
me. A motion.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Crockett moves that we put ordinance number 22 on to suspend the rules to put it on third and final reading. Ms. Davis seconds the motion. If there are no other comments or questions about the motion, call the roll.
Davis,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
Franklin, Etherly,
Yes.
Forward,
Yes.
Franklin, Mr. Franklin,
Yes, I was trying to say yes, but I couldn't.
oh, okay. Have 5 yes, 1 absent.
Ordinance number 22-21, base pay ordinance, the ordinance to fix the number and base pay of full-time city employees and elected officials to amend all prior such ordinances and for of other related purposes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Valley. Is there a motion for final approval of ordinance number 22 regarding the base pay for CDL drivers?
So moved.
Ms. Davis makes a motion for final approval of ordinance number 22. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Edley, I think that was seconded. Any questions or comments? If not, call the roll.
Etherly,
Yes.
Forward,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
Franklin, Mr. Franklin. Second, okay, I have 4 yes and 2 offline.
Okay.
Okay,
But the motion is approved, right? Does it need
Correct.
an emergency clause? Does it
Hey,
need an
I'm
emergency clause?
online.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Hello?
Hello, how would,
I'm
Does the motion need an
steady
emergency
saying,
clause?
I'm steady saying yes.
okay. Mr. Franklin, I have you as a yes.
I'm online. Sorry.
That's okay.
Mr. Valley? Are we done with that? Do we need an emergency clause on that?
yes, sir, it has emergency clause, it has to be adopted, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Ms. Davis moves adoption of the emergency clause for ordinance number 22.
This is
there a
Miss
second?
Crockett, Miss Crockett, Miss
Okay.
Crockett.
Second. Second.
I better start asking. All right, he seconded.
Ms. Davis.
Davis, okay. My apologies, I can't hear that well, I think. Any questions or comments about that? Adoption of the emergency clause on 22. If not, call the roll.
Mr. Franklin,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you. Davis,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
5 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you for that, and thank you for the CDL increase. I think, I hope, and believe that it will certainly help us, and we definitely, like a lot of people, but we've been desperately needing CDL drivers. And if you know anybody who wants a good benefits package and wants to stay home and get off the road, or anybody else for that matter that qualifies, let them know. Word of mouth is important, and this is a very competitive environment right now. But anyway, thank you for that. Okay, I was reminded after last week that we're supposed to only go for 2 hours. The other items on your agenda are not necessarily imminent. You don't have to do the appropriations on the Recovery Act, but I would encourage you to look at the items in your packet, that one and the rest of them. And if you have any questions, we sent out some information on the Recovery Act. Also, more than this, I think last meeting, there are a couple other items on the agenda that we kind of just dealt with the CDL one. So we really did actually ultimately get further down the list than normal. So, and we weren't.
What about the police department?
Well, again, I guess what I'm going to ask the council is, do you want to continue or do you want to cease? Because I had some comments from council members that said that at some time, I guess, and I asked about it and was clarified that we're supposed to try to get our business done in 2 hours. And so I haven't been very good at keeping to that. So,
well, I know
probably the most immediate thing on the agenda, it might be at the end, I'll ask Mr. Valley if he wants to discuss it, is the ADA compliance lawsuit bid that was done. As far as imminent business, I guess that would be the only thing that has to be done or really needs to be done. Mr. Malley, you want to address that real quick?
Yes, sir, man. I'll address that. The ADA lawsuit, if you remember, we were sued in 2018 or 2019 regarding sidewalks on Cherry Street, and that they lacked ADA compliance. And at the end, Ms. Fleet represented us, and the case was settled. And they gave us 2 years to fix the sidewalks. We've been trying to get them done, trying to get estimates, trying to get engineering plans. And the mayor let a bid, and you receive one person to respond, and receiving one person that responded. At this point, we need to go ahead and get it compliant. It's supposed to be prepared before the Blues Fest. And so I need to bring a competitive bidding waiver, but because the mayor talked to me about it this afternoon, but I think that also we need to go ahead and doing the work so that we won't be in contempt of court. Normally, I tell you don't approve it until after you get the base pay ordinance, not the base pay ordinance, the waiver of competitive bidding. But the mayor did send out bids, and the approximate cost of this is over $100,000. It's $128,000, and it's something that we have a federal court order telling us that we have to do. Because the federal court basically, like the American Disability Act, been in effect since the early 1990s, 1991, 1992, and that sidewalk has never been repaired. So it's something that they don't want to hear that it's quite expensive to get it done. They say get it done. So I requested you all authorize me to go ahead and do it, and I'll bring back the bid at the next council meeting so we can do the competitive bid and waiver. But he has solicited bids already. But I think we need to do the appropriation. Let's back up. You submitted the bid. You submitted bids already, right, man?
Yeah, they were submitted just as you said. So you think we need to?
No, it's not competitive bidding. They just need to
There's
prove
some
it.
action that we can take. tonight that we need to take tonight? I
Yes,
guess
if you've already submitted the bids, I'm sorry, I went down the road
Yeah.
rabbit hole. You've already submitted the bids,
Yeah,
so the only thing that
the
has to
bid
be, they have to
lettings-
approve the $100,000 expenditure. There was only one person that was that responded.
That's correct. Mr. Wallen held the bid opening, and one person responded, and he closed the bid opening. I wasn't actually there, but yeah, that's right.
Do we
Right,
need
it's
to put the
100.
name of the, Mr. Valley, do we need to put the name of the contractor in the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Valley, can I ask you to frame that in the way that we need, because I'm still, I don't mind saying I'm a little bit confused myself about exactly what we need to do.
I think it just needs to be a motion to appropriate the funds to approve the bid of a West Coast Concrete.
Okay.
And it's
So is there-
$128,300.
So
They-
and then
they
that
need
would be
to
a
approve-
res-
Yes, the resolution is the motion of the same.
So resolution, is there a motion to approve appropriation for how much? Is it up to
$128,300 to West Coast Concrete.
Is there a motion? And we're under a federal consent
moved.
order.
Second,
All right. Was that Ms. Davis? Ms. Crockett?
Crockett and Ms. Ford.
Yes, Ms. Crockett and Ms. Ford.
My apologies. Ms. Crockett made and Ms. Ford seconded the motion to approve the appropriation for the ADA contract with West Coast Concrete as stated by Mr. Valley. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Crockett,
Yes.
Forward,
yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Franklin, I have 4 yes and 2 absent.
Will you have 4 yes?
Yes, I have 4 yes.
That's all we need, right?
Yes.
And that should pass. Is there anything on that, Mr. Valley, that we need to do besides?
No, sir, you've already done the bid and they made the appropriation. And so you're fine.
There's no bid waiving in this case. So.
No, you've already done the bid.
All right. So thank you for that. And I mean, Mr. Valley, you can tell them if you want to go on to the phone contract issue, you can, if you want to, and if the council wants to stay. It's up to y'all.
Well, the fiber contract is a lease purchase agreement relating to telephones and internet and fiber. There have been tests ran at City Hall. As you all are aware, last week I was at City Hall, and the internet is so slow at City Hall that if more than one of us there at a meeting, we buffer. And so Mr. Turner and I have been in the building together, or Ms. Ramsey, or Mr. Turner there, our line buffers. What they have is a proposal, lease purchase agreement for equipment, for internet, and et cetera. The amount of it is 48 payments in the amount of $2,621 per month. And what they would do, they have a contract. They are a service provider who contract with AT&T and also contracts with the first responders. The first responders line, they have a very unique setup. It is done through Congress, and it is for the first responders. This internet is secure, and it goes beyond. It does not go offline when national disasters, or it does not go offline for storms and et cetera. It has what they've advertised, it has very good signal. And that's because it is part of the first responders group. It is for first responders, such as police and fire, and some other entities of the city. But they have presented the contract. The county has approved it. I've made numerous corrections to the contract, and we're still working on the final language. However, what I discussed with the mayor said, I'm fine with the council approving it, subject to me going through and working out all the legal language. Just some of the things they have in here is that if we sued, we'd have to go to Pennsylvania. Of course, we can't go to agree to that. We want the law to be judged by Arkansas. And if they sue us here in Phillips County. And there are several other things in here that I disagree with. But in meeting with their representatives, they had told me and the mayor that anything that I disagree with, then they would sign off on to remove it from the contract. And so in essence, what I was asking, if you all so desire to approve it, I will handle the legal part to finalize it if you approve it in principle for the amount and et cetera. With that, I'll yield to the mayor for any other additional comments he may have, or Ms. Ramsey, whatever knowledge they have relating to the contract and the contractor.
Well, the only thing I'd add to that would be that, we're estimating to save approximately, well, it's almost hard for me to believe, to be honest with you, but something like in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $10,000 a month, just at the water department alone. So, that's a pretty tremendous savings. And Mr. Valley has done a very good job, thorough job of looking at the contract and isn't done with it. But Mr. Valley, is there something you want us to do tonight on it?
Well, if they desire to approve it in principle, with me going ahead and finalize it before you sign it with all the legal language that I have concerned with it, then I would ask for their conditional approval, and you and I would have to sign off on it. But there's still some concerns that I want to meet with their representatives about to remove certain things from this contract from a legal standpoint.
And I won't sign it unless you're.
But if I may say this, the reason I asked for it in that manner, they say that the police and the water and the fire are actually waiting on this, and the quicker we can process it, the quicker they can get everything going. And they said that our internet speed is extraordinarily slow. Of course, we know that without any expert could tell us that, but theirs is quite fast in comparison, because it would also be fiber, some form of fiber, not the line fiber. But I don't remember the hyper technical stuff that he talked about. But it's the speed of fiber is what he told us.
So you're asking the council to approve correct me if I say this incorrect, wrong, but to approve the appropriation subject to your approval of the final contract.
Yes,
not this contract, but the final contract.
And your signature.
And I'm not going to sign it unless you approved it in writing somehow. So anyway, questions of council, comments if we still have a quorum.
How long will it take you to make those corrections and with language and everything to that contract and speak with their lawyers? What's the time? What time frame do you need to get that done?
Well, I've been working on it for about 2 weeks now, and I have it marked up a lot, and so I'll be back I won't be at City Hall tomorrow, but I'll be at City Hall Thursday. Oh, reminder, we have mediation Thursday the 22nd. Just want to remind you all of that. But yeah, Thursday or Friday, I should be completely done with my review. Well, now I don't know how it'll take them to make the changes, but I can mark it up for you and send you a copy of it. That's what you're asking for.
Thank you.
Other questions from the council? So the question before the council is to approve appropriation for the contract subject to the agreement of Mr. Valley on any revisions. and then final approval by the mayor based on the city attorney's approval beforehand. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, Mayor.
A little tortured, maybe. But does anybody want to make that motion? I know everybody's getting tired. I'm sorry.
This is Miss Crockett.
Ms. Crockett makes that motion accordingly as stated by Mr. Valley. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Heatherly seconds the motion. Any other questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Forward,
Abstain.
Etherly,
Yes.
Franklin, Crockett,
Yes.
Davis, Franklin, okay, I have 2 yes, 3 absent, and 1 abstention.
Yes.
Oh, Davis is yes. I have 3 yes, 2 absent, and 1 abstention.
Does my vote count in this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'll vote yes.
That gives me 4 yes, 2 absent, and 1 abstention.
So it sounds like the motion passes. Okay, so it's 8:30. The items on the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Valley. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about? I'll say this before you get off. We had a really, I thought, productive conversation today about the police officers and that whole issue. I think really all of us will be on the same page. I think there's a lot of us not on the same page, and I think the first goal is to make sure we are before we discuss. We need to know where we are before we discuss where we want to be and how we're going to get there. And one thing that I've concluded in talking to several parties involved in this conversation is that we're not all on the same page, but we're not necessarily wrong either. It's just we haven't maybe invested enough effort into getting on the same page. So I think Mr. Valley and I agreed this afternoon that it would be wise if we I'm not against any of this actually, but in fact, I'm for some of this. But if we, between now and the next council meeting, if Mr. Etherly is chairman of the new crime committee, and Mayor Pro Tem, myself, Chief Smith, Mr. Valley, Mr. Turner, and really the whole administration could meet and just make sure we're all on the same page as what we have, where they are, what we have to do to, well, first of all, where are we? Secondly, where do we want to be? And thirdly, how do we get there? I think we all really want the same thing. I don't think, and I'll take as much blame as anybody if for any miscommunication that might have occurred. But I do think we all want to be in the same place. And that's the main thing, if we can figure out how to get there. So if there's no objection on those matters, and in the interest of time anyway, because that would take up a lot of time and a lot of discussion at this point. Ms. Val, you want to add anything to that?
No, sir. We'll make sure we invite someone from the press, since the mayor and the city council member there.
Thank you for that.
Okay,
And,
can y'all, are y'all saying that we will have this by the first meeting, maybe the first meeting in August?
That'd be the goal. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, I hope so, because we pushed this down the road far enough. And if don't nobody, the policeman trying to get on the right pay scale for the last 2 years. And it's time, as Joe St. Columbus would say, let's stop kicking the can down the road.
Well, I think this would be a good step in that direction, and I think you're right, and I'd like to see August 1st be our deadline. I agree with you. And the Recovery Act can wait to then. If you don't mind, if you got any questions about it, and the water department's not ready anyway, as far as, we did discuss it, Mr. Turner and Mr. Patterson and I, and we had discussed it, but we don't really have it's really ready to come before you for action anyway, so we can move that to August 1st as well. Maybe we'll be better prepared on that.
Okay, can I ask you something, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I've made numerous calls to Mr. What's the man over the water department now?
Mr. Jeff.
Yeah, Mr. Jeff, with no return. We have a pump station that's over here by the park. The person that lives in the house there said that they've had communication with you, but the pump station is leaking, and in this latest yard is all kind of stuff where the water is setting up, causing gangrene and stuff, and nobody's come out to look at it.
Which park?
Right across from the park in North Helena, from the Big League Park, right there on the corner of Walnut and Monroe. The pump station that's right there.
So the pump station is leaking.
Yes.
Pump station number 1 right there.
I don't know the numbers, but that's the one I'm talking about.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for bringing that to my attention. It's possible that, and you probably don't want to share names on here, but it's possible I don't remember the pump station specifically, but tell her I'm sorry she hasn't been responded to, and I'll make sure she is tomorrow, or at least that issue is. And if you want to forward me name and phone number and all that, I'll also follow up with her. So, but I mean, that we have a lot of issues all over. I'll just address it generally speaking. We have a lot of issues like that. And that's one of the reasons I want the Recovery Act, I hope you agree, to be spent, or 90% of it to be spent on our water and sewer infrastructure. Water and sewer and broadband are the main categories the federal government wants us to spend it on. And water and sewer is so expensive. We're still working out some details on how much we're going to get, when we're going to get it, stuff like that. But in the meantime, if you'll consider that, read up on some of the information we sent you. We'll try to send you some more. August 1st would also be a good deadline to come to some general agreement anyway on it. But we had the winter storm. We had a couple of emergencies, as I alluded to earlier, that dealt with our cash flow. So if you look at that information, then we'll be better prepared when we do discuss it. But that's a good example of why we need to invest that money in our water and sewer infrastructure. And there are a lot of other examples too. Any other questions before we adjourn or comments? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Anybody want to move adjournment?
Make a motion, you adjourn. It's Ms. Ramsey.
Say that again.
Ms. Ramsey makes a motion that you adjourn.
We still have a quorum?
I don't think so.
Okay. Not hearing a quorum, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for those who are still on.
Everyone have a good evening.
You too.